Jerry Hobson. You can call us by our first name, Susie and Jerry. And this is Blue, and this is Jack. And Jack is our baby. He's just 1 year old.
No.
So he doesn't mind his manners very well.
Have a couple of helpers.
Oh, and we've got some ladies helping. Sierra is helping, and Susan.
Right here.
Okay, right there. And we may have some other adults helping too. And what's your? Are you one of the parents?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, some parents are helping too. Okay.
Huh.
Get some mosquito spray.
Oh, thank
Thank you.
And some. Get another bottle. First question.
What does Jardin de Milagros mean?
Yeah. So.
It's a miracle if we grow stuff here.
Yeah.
There you
It's a miracle to grow anything in the desert besides weeds. It's a miracle that we have enough water. It's a miracle when you plant little teeny tiny seeds and it grows into some gigantic, enormous plant and produces lots of vegetables. So we have a lot of miracles out here. This property is historic property. Who has heard of the Butterfield Trail stagecoach line? Nobody?
Used to go from Springfield, Missouri,
Yeah.
out to the west coast.
Yeah, out to California. Butterfield Trail Stagecoach. On the west side of town, there is a lot of Butterfield Trail names. There's a Butterfield Trail Golf Course. There's a Butterfield Trail Industrial Park. I think there's even a street by that name. So pay attention. That's something to look up and study. The original house that was here had 4 rooms. It was a guest house for the people riding on the stagecoach from Springfield, Missouri to San Francisco, and they swung down south to avoid the Rocky Mountains, and then they swung back up north again. And there was stables over there where they kept the horses and carriages. You see this big rock over here by the white truck? Well, I call it our monolith. Who knows what monolith means? Well, okay, that's our monolith. That's a word to look up. It was found buried in the center of this yard, 6 feet down. We think over the 150 years before we found it, it had just sunk down into the earth because it's so heavy, and our soil here is very soft. And it's got 4 bolts on the top of it, and so we think they probably tied something to it. Maybe they tied horses to it, maybe they tied the carriage to it, something like that. But the guy that found it with his big tractor could just barely push it there, and so we have left it there. But we might put a plaque on it at some time, talking about the stagecoach line.
I've been telling people that there's buried treasure inside of it, hoping that they would take it apart to find out.
So anyway, so we knocked down the old house here that was 150 years old, and we rebuilt and made a great big new house. So this is fairly new.
Jack.
Okay. So the land that our farm is on is, we have 3 acres, and it's part of a much larger parcel that belonged to various members of the family. Jerry's grandfather came out here in 1920 from Kentucky and homesteaded. And he might have bought some of the land, but the government had a program you could have land if you would farm it. And so anyway, he gradually acquired more and more land, and right now most of the land is in cotton, but we've got a very small part of that in our vegetables and in our wine grapes.
My granddad came out here in 1920, and he had 6 months to live. If he had stayed in Kentucky, he had tuberculosis. And a lot of people would come out to go to Arizona where the air was very dry. And they said had he stayed in Kentucky, they estimated 6 months. So he moved this way. He was on his way to Arizona, but he ran out of money in El Paso. And so he homesteaded 10 acres and became a vegetable farmer here. That's what he knew how to do. And that was, again, that was in 1920. And my mom was born in 1920. And then he started growing veggies, and he would take them into El Paso on the weekends to sell. over the years, cotton finally arrived here in the 40s, and that's whenever the Rio Grande Valley became a cotton center, and they grew cotton, short staple and long staple. The long staple, you may have heard of Pima cotton. Uh, what they grew here was called Supima or Super Pima, and most of the farmers who grew that actually wound up making pretty good money. And that the valley was very fertile then, and so a lot of people grew a bunch of cotton here, and my grandfather flourished in this environment. His health was good, and when he passed away 56 years later than his 6 months living in the dry area, he had 270 acres of land, and the farm has been split in two since then. My mom and my aunt got each half of it. My mother is still alive. She was 96 on October the 4th, and she's still active, and she likes to go, and she's got a live-in boyfriend, and she's a cougar, I guess. Anyway, so I grew up. My folks moved out here to the old house in the late 40s, and I've grown up here. I'm now 71, and so this has been my home for pretty much most all of that. I'm a chemical engineer by training, went to school at UNM in Albuquerque. Susie's a biology major with a math minor, and she taught math at Coronado High School many, many years ago. And our daughter, who's over there on the bench, she graduated from Coronado, and that's her son next to her, and that's Bryce. And so with my engineering background, I started to work at the Chevron refinery in El Paso. It now belongs to Paul Foster, and it's Western Refining, but I went to work there for about 5 years, and Susie was teaching school. And then after about 5 years, I went to work for El Paso Natural Gas, and we wound up being, I was in the engineering department there for a while, and then they moved me to Washington, D.C., and I got involved in government relations work. I was a lobbyist for the company, and then the railroad company, Burlington Northern, bought El Paso Natural, or bought the El Paso company, and my brother offered me a job back in El Paso.